Hello once again, witchy people. It is day 31 of the October YouTube Pagan Vlog Challenge. The last day. I'm going to miss it, I think. Today, the word is death. Well, it says death stroke dead. Because when I think of dead, I think of the dead. So, and you kind of know how I feel about that. But I wanted to start off this with a quote. And the quote is this: "It's interesting how people use that expression, life and death, as if to imply that life is the opposite of death. But birth is the opposite of death. Life has no opposite." It's a quote from a TV programme I used to watch many years ago. I think it finished in 2008, and that was around about the time the quote was used. The quote was by a character called Dawson Leary from the TV series Dawson's Creek. Yes, I was a fan. I still am. I love Dawson's Creek. Oh, yes. I was thinking of some of the characters that I really, really like. Oh, Pacey, he was nice. Anyway. It's a phrase that has stuck in my mind. When I first heard it, it kind of imprinted itself on my mind. And I found it very, very profound. So, dead is an adjective. It's a descriptive word, and I use it to describe the dead. Die is a verb, so it's an action word, and died is the past tense of die. But death is a noun. It's a naming word. So it's really difficult to define. Really, if you put it that way, it's difficult to define because it's not an action. Death isn't an action like die or dying. And if the opposite truly is birth, they can mean very much the same thing. It's change. If something dies, something must be born. So I mean that there's a change that has to happen. My mum once said to me that death doesn't scare her, dying does. The way that she's going to die. And that may be true for a lot of people. Part of me is terrified about death, truthfully. The other part of me is incredibly curious and excited to step into the unknown. Because no matter what experiences we've had with death, near-death experiences, friends and relatives dying, communication with the other world, the world of the dead, the spirit world, none of us truly know 100% what it's going to be. So it does conjure up death. The word itself, it conjures up such a mix of emotions in me. But as an opposite, I think death, the opposite of death being birth, makes so much sense. And we all think of like tarot, the death card being the card of change, the death of something in order to have the birth of something else, the change of something. So it's not a bad thing. It can be death is natural, or it should be natural. And I'm not saying we should all accept death, pie on. The Jews had a lovely way of looking at it. Jewish people tend to think, you're going to die one day, and you're a long time dead. So whilst you're alive, celebrate, have a party, and I think that is a brilliant way of looking. Death is inevitable. It's coming to us all. And that in itself is a scary thought, I guess. But it should also be exciting. It should also be, yes, expected. But I think the problem is, in a lot of Western cultures and civilizations, we have started, in more modern times certainly, to shield our children from death. I know quite a few people that would say, oh, I'd never let my child go to a funeral. I always let my children go. The first time I actually saw a dead body, absolutely terrified me in some ways. I didn't want to touch. It was my grandfather, and my nan kept on saying, just touch him, say goodbye. I'm like, I can't touch him, I can't do it. And we do shield our children from death, instead of allowing them to accept it as a natural part of life. You know, something, it's natural, it's not something to be afraid of. We don't. We shield our children from it, and, you know, maybe that's the wrong thing to do. Because in denying almost that death, in shielding from death, in denying and stopping thinking about death, we're denying our ancestors, we're denying our past, and those people and those ones that made us who we are. Now, I'm not saying that we should all welcome death with open arms. Of course I'm not. What I'm saying is that we have to learn to accept death. As you may have noticed from previous videos when I spoke about my father, I have not accepted his death. I don't think I ever will. But it's definitely, as a concept in general, we need to train our communities, our civilization, to accept death as a natural process. And that way perhaps people wouldn't fear so much the idea that one day they will die. One day there will be a death. I like to think, if you think of death as change, and yes, it can be painful, but it's not always bad. The death of your childhood, you know, there is a point where your childhood dies and you grow up, you become a different person. And it can be painful, but it's a good thing for you to grow and change and become the person you do. When you grow into adulthood, the death of your singleton days, when you become married and become attached to someone, is something to be celebrated. And in that way, death, just because we don't know for sure what's coming after death, in the same way that we don't know what came before birth, it's still something to be celebrated. Even if we don't know what's going to happen, it's still something that we need to accept and make part of our life, part of our existence. So I thought I'd talk about death in this way rather than talking about the spirits and the dead, because I often talk about spirits and the dead, and I thought this would be just a different train of thought on the idea of the word. So there you go. October YouTube Pagan Vlog Challenge, the final day, day 31, death/dead. The YouTube Pagan Vlog Challenge 2019. October YouTube Pagan Vlog Challenge 2019 is now dead. It is finished. Let it evolve into something else. There you go. I'll stop waffling. I'll be quiet now. Thank you very much for watching. I don't know if I shall do this again, because as I said before, it's extremely hard work getting these videos out every single day, and it's kind of left everything else to the wayside. So I haven't YouTube Pagan Challenge. I've got some listed out, but I haven't recorded them yet. I've got several things I need to keep recording. So yes, this vlog challenge has kind of put everything else to one side, and it's been difficult, but it's been fun. So thank you, Brittany, and thank you to everyone else who's watched these videos and taken part in the challenge. And I hope you all had as much fun as I did. And for the parts that weren't fun, they have been enlightening, and they've made me slightly more knowledgeable in some things. They've made me think, and that's always a good thing. So that's it. Thank you for watching, witchy people. Bye bye for now.